Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the Tree of Geek, where we are gonna get to the second half of our Spider-Man rankings. Now, last time you heard us, we did the first half. We did number 10 through number 6. Today we'll be doing number 5 to number 1. We're gonna see which Spider-Man reigns supreme and is the most amazing. Thanks for joining us.
All right, let's get started. Moving on to number 5 on my list, I have Spider-Man 2. The sequel, directed by Sam Raimi himself, continues. Peter Parker, played by Tobey Maguire. I was thinking Topher Grace. I can't get him Eric out of my head.
I can't get the dance out of my head.
He grapples with maintaining his personal life while facing the new threat of Dr. Octopus, played by Alfred Molina, the scientist who becomes a dangerous villain. The film also explores themes of responsibility and sacrifice. A very simple synopsis. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it because it is a very good movie. Unfortunately, I like some other ones better.
That's why we're doing the rankings.
Some things I really love, though, is this movie. It does feel weird doing them out of order because I'm referring to things from the first one, but it dives much deeper into Peter Parker's struggle of being Spider-Man and just an ordinary person. But it also adds a lot of depth and relatability to the character because you see him trying to juggle essentially work life and home life.
It's hard serving pizzas, man. It's hard delivering pizzas. Shout out Domino's. I love you guys.
Actually, I ate at that, I can't remember what it's called now, but the pizza place he's working at in that movie. When I was in New York for a business trip recently, I went and I ate at that little restaurant.
Very nice.
It's not a restaurant. It's like a little opening where you go into the counter, order
Like a
food, and
bodega?
leave. Kind of.
Yeah, like a food bodega. I don't know what the terminology in NYC is.
Yeah.
I don't want to
But
offend anybody.
it was fantastic. I will say that the pizza there was amazing.
How are the prices? Seeing how this has been in a movie, they're like, oh, we've been in a Spider-Man.
I don't remember.
You know.
I don't remember.
Yeah, you don't worry about money. Yeah, pocket change.
Per diem. The action sequences in this movie, I thought, were some of the best choreography in a superhero movie I had seen to date. That's like the train battle where they're fighting on the train, and then he has to stop the runaway train. And you get those iconic images of like the people carrying him through the train to lay him down because he's, almost dead.
It's such an iconic scene that in the amazing last Halloween movie, they decided to recreate it and carry Michael Myers over atop all the people before they shredded his body into pieces.
Wow.
By the way, I am not a huge fan of that movie.
I also really like the clock towers fight where
Flavor Flav.
Yeah, yes. No, where they're fighting up on the towers, and he's got Aunt May, and it's just there's some really amazing scenes that really showcase his agility and his creativity during those fights that you don't see in the first one or in the third one for that matter. The movie's completely just lined with themes of taking responsibility. It continues to explore Peter and his personal dealing with things, which is why he ends up losing his powers. Because part of it is, you could call it depression, anxiety, but a lot of it's also inability to cope.
So basically, he had a psychotic breakdown in a way. Well, not psychotic in everybody, but he had a psycho issue and couldn't perform. And I'm gonna tell you guys right now, when I was looking back up on this because it's been a while since I'd seen it, and I saw there on the internet that he loses his powers, I scratched my head for a minute. I was like, "Wait, you lost his powers in that movie?"
Briefly.
Yeah. So I was like, "Wow." And I had to read up why, and I go, "Okay, it's all coming back to me now." But
that is why web shooters are better than organic shooters.
Yeah.
The film also has a really good balance of action and emotional moments. I feel like it really keeps the viewer connected with the characters. The biggest one that comes to mind is when he's sitting in the diner with MJ. They're having that connection, but then it's interrupted by a car coming through the front window. Which, again, we're talking about iconic scenes. That is one of the first things I think of when I think of Spider-Man 2.
Oh, I agree. I did remember that scene.
Oh, well, that's good. What I didn't like, though, was the pacing felt very slow when it was going through the overall narrative of, oh, here's our relationship status and here's anything not action based. It felt like it drug. But then anything that jumped into the actual let's fight, let's superhero-esque anything, it really felt like it was moving at a proper speed. You could get into it. and it wasn't 5-minute fight sequences. Like they made them decently long, and they did that so that you could get into the moment. And then, of course, that being said, Mary Jane's arc, trying to get into her or her acting career,
Modeling or
modeling. I mean, I found her character even less engaging than I did in the first movie. Kirsten Dunst, I feel she looked the part for MJ I see your face, to an extent.
you think he never read a Spider-Man comic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a redhead. That's what you need, right?
Sassy redhead.
Okay.
You need a sassy redhead
And
tiger.
that's the other thing. She's too flat. I didn't feel there was any chemistry between the two during any of their romantic, or not really romantic. I guess it was more like, hey, love me, no scenes. It came across as very one dimensional. Like there was nothing there. It was reading a script. Like somebody was standing behind Tobey Maguire with cue cards. Now, I went ahead and I just ripped, poor Kirsten Dunst down to the ground. Let's turn around and build somebody up. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. Wow.
Money.
I mean, he was. I looked when I was doing my research. He's widely praised as one of the most complex, deep, and just all around most likable villain of that Spider-Man trilogy.
Oh, of course.
Now, don't get me wrong, Willem Dafoe is pretty far up there, but I mean, it's Alfred Molina. I mean, his portrayal was just perfect. And James Franco as Harry Osborn, horrible friend. Um, but I enjoyed watching his descent down his father's path of darkness and mental instability. I thought that was done wonderfully. I thought James Franco was a good pick for that. I also really liked the fact that watching his desire for revenge drive him, that was something that you can relate to as a human. That's a human emotion that you could relate to him as. And when he pulls the mask off towards the end, holding the dagger, and Peter's wrapped up in barbed wire, the look on his face of just pure betrayal. I don't know that we could have gotten a much better reaction from somebody that wasn't James Franco. For that role, I thought he was great. For the role of the Green Hob new Goblin, no, I didn't.
Is it Hobgoblin? I know Ned is supposed to become
So-
Hobgoblin, but
They called it.
Demogoblin, Hebogoblin.
Well, there
or
was
there's
a
like 10 of
a
them.
new Goblin at one time. Originally, yeah,
Was James DeHaan supposed to be? Now I'm thinking about this. Is he more of like a jackal goblin?
I think he was supposed to be a hobgoblin. I don't know what James Franco's was supposed to be, if he was a hobgoblin, a new goblin, or just like the new Green Goblin. I didn't care for it. Especially Spider-Man 3. I avoided bringing it up, but the snowboard aerial vehicle.
Hey, SX Tricky was very popular on the Xbox
Like,
at that
what
time.
was that? Okay, yeah. I mean, that's my review of Spider-Man 2. All in all, I loved it, but it's not without its severe pitfalls.
I think it's a product of its time, as is my next pick. If you're done,
2004.
my number 5 is Spider-Man 1 from 2002.
Really?
Yeah, number 5. Directed by Sam Raimi, this film follows the original Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire, as he gains spider-like powers and becomes Spider-Man. He takes on the Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe, to save the New York City and that's right, the New York City, not just any New York City. And he has to balance his life as a high school student and superhero, even though he's a high school student for like 15 minutes of that movie, it felt like. I mean, I put it at number 5, so obviously I do enjoy this movie. What I like about it is I believe that this movie, along with X-Men at that time, are the movies that set the tone for what a good comic book movie could do. It brought amazement and wonder to the screen. It like brought things from the page onto the screen that I didn't really think you were going to get. I mean, there were some other ones around, but like this was, I admit, when I saw Spider-Man in the theater, I was like, wow, man, that was just, it was amazing when I walked out. Me and my buddy talked for hours about it. We liked it so much. But that was 2002. That was a long time ago, and a lot of movies have come along since then. I did like the fight scenes. What you're talking about were very, very well done. I'm not going to like repeat a lot of what you said here. I'm just going to kind of echo it, from that movie. I think it was just as good in this movie. I mean, I know the Green Goblin kind of looked like he was from the Power Rangers, but I thought where he's throwing like the grenades at him, he's flipping around and things. I thought like you just kind of didn't really see that stuff in a movie before. And I thought this was just a good Kickstarter to what Spider-Man movies could be, what superhero movies could be. I tell you what I didn't like though, the plot pacing of Peter going from high school to the real world so fast. Kirsten Dunst reminds me I thought about this as you were talking. She reminds me, she's a good girl next door, which she did play in the movie. But as Mary Jane, I didn't buy it. I didn't buy their relationship. I could see him having a crush on her, but I can't see her ever getting with Tobey Maguire in that movie with Peter Parker. There was some campiness to it. Macho Man Randy Savage is in there. The cafeteria hijinks, where all the food falls right back onto the
The
what do you call
tray.
it? The tray. Tray.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to say trailer. I don't know why. But yeah, they fall. Like, I thought it was a little bit too silly.
That
Cat-
can happen.
I mean, it could. There is that possibility. I mean, Tobey Maguire as Peter is okay. I mean, for the first movie, when I first saw him, though, I didn't really know who he was. I didn't really have an issue. More of my issues are with him or in the later movies, but I think in the first one, he did a pretty well job. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. You're not going to get a better J. Jonah Jameson. Like, he's just ingrained. That voice is there. He's an amazing actor. He was great on Oz. He's great in Invincible as Omni-Man. He's just been in so many good things even before this show, and he really ripped into this role. I mean, when I talk about campiness and over the top, but I feel like he had the right 50-50 level on there. He knew when to throw it out there, when to pull it back a little bit. Willem Dafoe, he has a nice leveled crazy to him. I don't know if there's a black and white movie with the guy just played Batman, and there's a whole entire sequence where they're arguing with each other. Robert Pattinson, the White House. And he's just doing this weird voice, and he's talking about his lobster, and they're fighting with each other. But you like me lobster, don't you? And like the emotion that Willem Dafoe brings to any role he's in, whether it's Boondock Saints or Speed 2, like he's just good in any role you put him in. And yeah, the Green Goblin did look a little bit silly, but for the time that it came out, he was perfect. And he again gets a little bit of a second shot in the future. Overall, I think it's a brick layer of the foundation for modern comic book movies. It's not the best or the worst, but the importance of its success cannot be understated or forgotten. Some of the casting missteps hinder it for me, but overall, I think it's a fun flick, and I think it stands the test of time. Back to you, good buddy.
So in the number 4 spot, I put The Amazing Spider-Man 2012, Andrew Garfield. I have to admit, first and foremost, I went into this movie very, very skeptical. I mean, we're coming, 5, I think, years off of the end of the Sam Raimi trilogy. Do we really need another reboot?
It was done very quickly.
Well, I mean, you got to think about production time. That means they were probably working on that very quickly after the Sam Raimi movie even hit
Yeah,
theaters.
it's not like Friday the 13th fast. Like, they used to turn those movies in the 80s, but it's still, for, like, this type of movie, it's a quick turnaround.
Oh, yeah.
Very turnaround to reboot and restart something.
Now, I did like it took a fresh take on the whole Spider-Man origin story. It still kept the classic, he got bit by the spider at the lab. It kept, he's a photographer, and he's kind of geeky. Now, like I said, I had some issues with Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker. Hearing your rebuttal, I guess I'll give him some more credit than he deserves.
You're welcome, Andrew. You needed my help on this one.
Yeah, he's going to be the first one to write in, you know that.
I hope so.
But I also feel like this movie took a very different direction from the Sam Raimi ones. Just in the idea of, it left the very serious storytelling behind, and it tried to take more of a relaxed, comic book fun approach to it, if that makes sense.
Makes great sense.
Now, granted, we're well into the future. It's 2012 now. What I said was 2002.
Yeah, 2002 was the
Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
So we're a decade in. The visual effects have incredibly increased. I mean, especially, and you can really see it in the action sequences, but more in his web swinging scenes. It doesn't look green screen or anything. It doesn't even look that CGI. It looks really well done. The tone of the movie, they gave it more of a modern, relatable feel, kind of like an upbeat, hey, let's appeal to a younger audience type feel to it, which I did appreciate. It, like I said, it made it more fun, but that also means that in order to have a more serious storyline, you've got to find a way to balance humor and dark. Like Venom, what can I say? They did it right. I did like that Peter Parker's backstory was a little more flushed out. You know, instead of just, he was bit by a spider, they did play it off a little bit as, hey, his parents left him with his aunt and uncle. Oh, here's a suitcase. You know, like little tidbits here and there that gave his backstory of Peter Parker and his origin story just a little bit more depth that I really appreciated. But it was just so soon after Sam Raimi. I guess you could almost say I had trouble giving him my full attention because at the same time I'm enjoying the movie, I'm also looking at it from a comparison point of view.
Well, it's the same as like the Fantastic Four. They churn out those two movies. Now it was maybe a little bit different of a time frame, but it's still when you have these characters fresh in your mind, you're
Yeah.
instantly like it's like just imagine if Tony Stark died and say the very next Marvel movie that comes out this year
It'd
or
be like
next year
if-
they're gonna have another Tony Stark.
It would be like if they rebooted Iron Man right now with a whole new character.
Yeah, a whole new character. But what if it was Tony Stark? Like you'd be
Well,
like,
no, I
well,
mean,
no,
like,
this
sorry,
is
a new actor. If they brought a brand new Tony Stark, a new, fresh story, it would feel very awkward.
right.
It'd be like going on a date with, your ex-wife's sister. It's gonna feel very weird.
Well, I already have some pause.
I think I you already have.
No, no, no. I already have some pause about some of the newer movies that are going to come. I'm glad they have X-Men now, and I'm glad they're doing that in a weird way with Wolverine now. But like Fantastic Four, we're going to get that movie in the next 2 years.
Oh yeah, supposedly.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for it.
Just quick question: who do you want to be Mr. Fantastic?
Well, I think Krasinski is an amazing actor, but I'd have to get. I'll let me think on that minute because I've never. I don't know. I never really thought about it because I'm not a huge Fantastic Four fan either.
I know Multiverse of Madness. They gave us John Krasinski as like fan service. Oh, you wanted it? Here it is. I would love to see him playing Mr. Fantastic, and his real life wife Emily Blunt. I think would make a very good Sue Storm.
Yeah, she would. She's a great actress too.
That's my personal input. Please, take it to heart. I don't need royalties. Just make it happen. Back to the Amazing Spider-Man. I also have an issue with. I felt like they just followed the same classic formula that most of the other superhero movies up till this point had already followed. Hey, you got somebody in your life that's look at it as Doc Ock that we just talked about. Peter Parker and a scientist. They're getting along. They're helping each other. Something happens. That scientist is now a bad guy. You see the comparisons here, right?
Well, I can definitely listen. There's a lot of superhero movies that have villain problems.
Yes. My biggest issue isn't even with that. My biggest issue is with Dr. Kurt Connors in general, the Lizard. Why did he suddenly decide, like, okay, yes, I am going to experiment to grow my limb back? I get it.
Yeah, I mean, he doing a lot of testing, a lot of genetic testing. He thought he could make it happen. So
yeah, it's an awesome
it's
twist.
It's like one of those things where you want to test things, but they're like, well, you can't really do this on humans. He's like, oh, I just can't wait. I don't have an arm.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't had an arm for a while. Okay. I do like in the Spider-Man cartoon that he's like kind of buff and ripped, and then we have another skinny actor, which I just now thought of.
Okay, so he wants to grow his arm back. I get it. Some bad side effects. Okay, I get it. I'm going to turn the whole city into lizards. What?
I sort of forgot about that plot point. Thanks for reminding that he wanted to make everybody lizard-brained.
I looked it up online, and some people were like, well, he wanted to try and make a world without imperfection where people could grow their limbs back. And someone else is like, no, he likes lizards.
I love turtles. I'm not trying to turn the world into turtles, into tortoises,
So please, let us know why he wanted to turn everything into
I would like to know your theories on this. I know there was like hashtag Thanos right, but is there like a hashtag lizard was right?
In in a parallel universe, his plan succeeded, and that became the original Mario movie. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you are a lucky, lucky soul.
It sounds like a weird episode of Rick and Morty where everybody's lizards.
It does. So yeah, that's my biggest issue with the villain in that movie. But then on the flip side, I thought Emma Stone's performance as Gwen Stacy was outstanding. I loved her as Gwen Stacy. I think she's an amazing actress. I think the chemistry between her and Andrew Garfield on set, like as Gwen and Peter, was phenomenal. I thought you could totally believe that they were in a relationship. Sally Field as Aunt May, great choice. Not really in it as much as she could have been. Like, she had a very minimal part, in my opinion. But speaking of minimal parts, we have Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben. It was neutral. I didn't I mean, yep, he had to die.
I forgot that he played him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was that.
He had to die. I mean, that's just how it is for Spider-Man. But I really felt that they only got Martin Sheen because they wanted to put a big, well-known name on the poster. He didn't do anything for me.
Was he really selling a lot of movie tickets at this point?
I mean, the last name's Sheen.
I mean, Tiger's blood was running rampant, I think, at this time.
The man needed to help pay for his son's court fees. Okay. Sorry,
they're going to recast Tony Stark with Charlie Sheen.
Oh, man.
He's gonna be the next redemption
Well,
case.
they could though. I mean, they could totally follow the plot of Tony Stark as a horrible alcoholic and drug addict.
Yeah,
Charlie'd be perfect.
that's a big thing. I think they fumbled in the MCU.
Well,
But
they purposely kept away from that. I read. They wanted to keep it a little more on the family friendly side. Iron Man 2 had a little bit of touch on the alcoholism, but they tried to keep away from it as a major plot point because well, they saw him as a role model.
alcoholic just like you
If I drink liquor, I can build a suit.
in a cave with spare scraps.
And finally, Dennis Leary
Ugh.
as detective, not
I
detective,
got a few things.
Captain Stacy. I love him as an actor. I thought he did great. The acting was great. I just had a hard time believing his role. I don't know. I really liked him in the part, but for some reason he didn't click for me. What can I say?
Oh, that's your take.
It is.
Yeah.
What's your take on number 4?
The Amazing Spider-Man. Is that what you're asking about? Number 4?
Yeah, are you number 4?
Yeah, it's number 4. That's number 4. So
Well then, we'll
yeah, how about that?
continue.
So we'll just dive right back into it. I'm not going to give a synopsis, even though he skipped it. But Mark Webb was the director, which I always thought
Oh,
was
geez, I
awesome
did.
because it's Mark Webb, web slingers. We get all that. I thought it was cool that he actually builds some, because the first Spider-Man we only had was Tobey Maguire. He shoots him out of wherever. Now you got a guy that can build them because he's smart. I kind of touched on this when we were talking about the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Do you think Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker was smarter than Tobey Maguire's?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. Now he may stumble over himself here and there, but I think if they did SATs, that Garfield will come up with a bigger score. Speaking of Garfield, he's what I liked about this movie. I loved his charisma. What he brought. He wasn't too wimpy, but he was a bit awkward. I thought the skating was a nice touch. He felt like a street kid that belonged in New York City. I think this is my favorite Spider-Man suit, even up till now. I just like the way it was done. It seemed like it moved really well on him.
Well, and on that, I will say I really appreciate the older practical suits compared to like the newer CGI suits.
I agree.
There's just something about that practical suit that, and I will agree with you, Andrew Garfield's. There's just something about it that was always my favorite one.
So yeah, we agree on that
Yeah.
for sure. I think making Gwen his love interest in this one was refreshing. They're like, okay, we did MJ 3 times, let's switch it up. I think the reason that also works, and you touched on, I feel like they could have dated. It's because after this movie, they dated for 4 years, Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield, and they still say they have,
really?
they still say that they love each other to this day, but they've been with different people, obviously, for a while. But yeah, they dated because of this movie. They dated for 4 years.
That's amazing.
So you could see that chemistry. I mean, the Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, where it was just not
It felt
there.
forced. Like it was stiff.
Yeah, when these two looked at each other, I'm like, wow, they want each other. They care. What I didn't like, I mean, you kind of mentioned it here, is I didn't like messing with Peter's parents' past. I know you have to do some refreshing things. It's the whole Superman thing. You want a new Superman, but you change Superman, people get angry. But let's leave his parents alone. Only reason they did it is maybe they were going towards a Jackal spider clones thing where his parents are resurrected in the comics and it gets all weird, and maybe they were headed that direction. They were already hinting towards the Sinister Six thing. But I don't need a conspiracy theory in my comic book movies unless it's Winter Soldier. I don't need it. If I want that, I will watch Jack Ryan with John Krasinski in it, which just wrapped up. Great show. If you guys haven't watched it, go check that out.
I haven't seen the last season yet.
Some of the lighting and the coloring of the movie I felt were dark at times. So in some of the sequences with the lizard, I had trouble following the movie. I do remember that. I feel like it was kind of just overly dark. But it didn't really majorly ruin the movie for me. It's just...
Like the scene when he builds the big web.
Yeah, when they're in the sewers and doing things. It was kind of...
Like, when all the lizards decide to come through.
It's hard to track with your eyes what's kind of going on. I feel like I had a TV recently that we bought, and before we figured it out, like, it was just so dark on our TV all the time. And we were watching shows that were taking place in space or at night, and we're like, man, we can't see anything. But I remember in the Spider-Man movie, it was sort of like that. I couldn't really see well. As far as the casting goes, I said it before, I liked Emma Stone and I liked Garfield. I thought they did well with each other. Dennis Leary, to me, breathes New York City. I've seen him in a few shows. I liked his comedy back in the day. I thought it was refreshing to see him not just a plain asshole, but like for him to be a cop and do that at the same time. Like that dynamic I thought was good.
Wasn't he in like a firefighter show?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in New York City. Can't remember the name off my head. As you were talking, I was trying to remember it.
We'll
I
just
guess
say
I could.
backdraft. That'll work.
A lot of people don't like that movie. Don't offend people.
I know.
You know, I thought it was okay, but maybe I'm gonna offend people. Reese Ifans, I feel like he did what he could. I'm not sure he was perfect for that role. I think he's more of a comedic actor for me, but it was what it was. I think it was nice seeing a younger Sally Field, or a younger Aunt May, rather. I mean, she wasn't Marissa Tomei young, but she wasn't like, I can barely walk, help me, I've fallen
Yeah.
old either. No offense to the elderly out there. I love Grandma. They're cool.
Well,
But,
my issue with that was always it's his aunt, which means they're the same age as his parents.
well, I was about to say here,
Unless they're, well, not the same age, but within that, what, say 5-10 year-ish
yeah, your
range?
aunt should be around the same age as your mom and dad. And I mean, Sally Field could play it off. I think that she was not super old, but not like super. Like she was still like maybe Peter's mom was like the younger of 5 kids or something. I don't know,
Right.
but I think it kind of worked there. Martin Sheen was a little bit older,
Yeah.
but I think he's just aged differently. But overall, going back to this one, I forgot how much I actually liked it. When I first initially did this ranking, it was down lower, but then after watching some scenes again and reading up on it, I was like, yeah, okay. It all started coming back to me, and I put it up a little bit higher. It kind of sucks that what they did with part 2. I feel like they had a good foundation here and kind of ruined it a bit. But at least Garfield gets another shot. So there is my overall take on that pick. And now
I
we
appreciate
have
it.
3 to go, and it is your third.
All right. Well, number 3 for me was Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Okay.
Well, we finally got one different. All right, good.
Yeah. A
And
couple different.
This time I'll read the synopsis since I forgot for last time. In
Call you out every
Spider-Man:
time.
Homecoming, this film is set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, also known as the MCU. It features Tom Holland as a younger Peter Parker, directed by John Watts. It showcases Peter's high school life, his mentorship by Tony Stark, also known as Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr., and his confrontation with the Vulture, played by the amazing Michael
Batman.
Keaton.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
What?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Not Batman.
Michael Batman Keaton. This is number 3 on my list. It holds a special place because it was a totally new reboot of the Spider-Man franchise. Now, 2017, when was Spider-Man 2? Let me look here real quick. 2014. Again, we had a very, very short window between one ending and one starting, but this time it was, I'd say, acceptable because we were going from Sony on one and Marvel on the other, not Sony and Sony.
Right. Sony didn't have it only had one hand or a couple fingers in here, where
Mhm.
Kevin Feige kept slapping him back like, no.
It was
Let
basically,
me do
hey,
this.
we bought the rights to use him. Go sit in the corner.
Right. We'll write you a check. Leave us alone.
I love that it was part of the MCU because it allowed for all those crossover moments. It allowed for, Tony Stark to come in. You saw Happy Hogan. You literally never knew if you're going to see another character just randomly show up. And it added a certain level of excitement and Easter egg hunting for some of the diehard fans. I'm trying to remember. In Iron Man 2, there's a little kid at the convention wearing an Iron Man mask that one of the robots almost blow away.
Yes, I've heard this theory.
Well, I'm trying to remember if I read it correctly, but I believe they confirmed, canon, that is Tom Holland's Peter Parker.
I never read the
I don't know-
confirmation or not.
I don't know if it
I've
was
heard of it.
Officially confirmed, but I remember reading that. So if you know, please let us know in the comments below. We finally see him in high school for more than 10 minutes of a movie.
I mean, not just like 2 classes.
Yeah.
And a lunch.
Yes, like we actually get to see him in high school. We see him as what I, in my head, see as like the awkward, social outcast, not like full blown outcast, but like you can tell he doesn't
He
know
has
how
that
to
Michael J.
interact.
Foxness to him in this.
Mm.
Have you ever seen Teen Wolf? He's kind of got
Yeah.
that. Where you look at him, like, well, he should be cool, but he's kind of getting picked on.
He doesn't know how to interact with people, type of thing.
Yeah.
Yep, I completely understand that. And I like how the movie completely skips over the spider bite. The movie opens up, he's already Spider-Man. Well, a Spider-Man. Because his
Spider Boy.
Well, his first appearance was actually in Captain America: Civil War. So the movie opens up with a little like cell phone documentary of, hey, I'm going to go do this in Germany. I did this in Germany. Okay, I'm back home. Now what do I do? No one's answering my calls.
Well, I think at this point we didn't need another origin.
Story. Yeah, I completely agree.
And I
completely agree.
That the MCU did, and hopefully they get back to it, but they've kind of understood what fans want. They're not giving them everything they want, but they understand, hey, if you piss us off enough, we're not going to go see your
it's
movie.
like Iron Man. At the time, nobody knew who he was. Like, fan-wise, yeah, some diehard comic fans. Most of the people who, like, oh, I love Iron Man, they had no idea who he was before that movie came out. So they had to do an origin story. Believe it or not, Captain America was another one that wasn't as popular as people, like to believe he was. At the time, Marvel's big hitters were Spider-Man
And X-Men.
And X-Men. I mean, that was really their heavy hitters.
Well, you put Spider-Man or Wolverine on the cover, you're going to sell some issues. That's just the way it was.
Do you know Spider-Man almost didn't happen?
Which one? Like
in general.
Oh.
In general. I can't remember the name of the magazine that Stan Lee was originally writing for. It was like, your classic, like, comic book style.
Oh, you're talking way, not the movie. You're talking,
I'm talking
the character itself.
The character. At the time, he wanted to put this new character, Spider-Man, in, and the publishers kept saying, no, nobody wants to read about a kid superhero. They want Superman. They want...
Are we talking about Timely Comics? Like,
I think it might have been, but it was about to go out. Like, they were done. They weren't making money anymore. They're about to end it. And if I remember correctly, like, the next to last or the last issue that was released, he basically said, screw it. And he put his Spider-Man comic in. And it completely blew up.
It's because he's the everyman.
It's because he's completely covered head to toe. He can be white, black, red, purple, green. He can be a male, a female.
Any religion, doesn't matter. Like, you don't know.
He's
just a guy beating up bad guys.
He's a spider. That's what he is. It saved the Marvel startup as it was.
I'm gonna look into that, but that's cool. If that's,
I remember reading that or seeing a documentary about Stan Lee. I can't remember now, but it stuck with me because it was one of those, like, oh, the little guy saved the day type of thing.
Right. Stan Lee. What can we say?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I love how Homecoming really focuses on Peter, his growth as a superhero, and like I said, not his origin, but him figuring this stuff out, being the classic rebellious teenager and getting yelled at by Daddy Tony. That being said, I also feel that the movie had an over-reliance on the MCU. Like, it's great, he's in it, okay, cool, he's part of this big, massive universe. They leaned very heavily into the MCU tie-ins. They leaned very heavily on Tony Stark showing up, which I get it. He was part of, getting Peter on his feet type of deal. It felt very forced in the sense of, like, hey, we're going to use this to prepare our next movie. I don't know if they focus as much on it as they could have instead of trying too hard to intertwine it into the overall universe. Does that make sense?
No, it makes complete sense. At this point, they got a big giant roadmap up on a wall somewhere.
Yeah.
And before this movie even hits the theaters and you get in the seats, they already know if this is successful, these are the 4 movies that are going to come from this, is what we're going to tie it in. At this point, the MCU is like, they're churning and burning. Like, they know what's going on. This isn't, let's tease a little bit of Thor and a little bit of Hulk and let's see if this works or not. They're like, we know Spider-Man is going to work. He was already in this movie. Let's keep rolling on.
No, absolutely. Another issue I had was, like, it didn't feel like the stakes were very high in this one. Yeah, okay, his love interest father is stealing alien stuff, and he's trying to make money, and he's trying to, go up and rob the big shield airplane. But there wasn't any, like, major stakes like in the other movies. Like, oh, MJ could die. Oh, Gwen Stacy could or did die. Or Aunt May's in trouble. Like, this one was just, hey, I know who you are. Keep away from my daughter and don't stop me. That was the biggest stake in the movie.
Well, don't worry. He fights aliens later on.
Which, freaking side note, the best scene in this whole movie is the realization on Michael Keaton's face that the kid in the back seat is Spider-Man.
Well, the contrast of colors that they have in there,
I never took notice.
Yeah, it's not like really blatant, but kind of like in the original Spider-Man where they're wearing different, Spider-Man's wearing the Green Goblin colors and vice versa. You can kind of see just like the lighting and the way like they contrast each other in a way. I don't know. It's hard to describe. You'll have to go back and see it, but it's
yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it. Being number 3, I'll happily go back and rewatch it.
right. Yeah, we're at rewatch territory here. This isn't.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing I do like is Ned. I'm sorry. But I feel like he, being that guy in the chair, is a really cool aspect that you don't see in the other Spider-Man movies. You don't see a partner. it's always, I have to protect my identity to protect the ones I love. And in this case, he's like, hey, I need help.
And
Okay.
he still can't keep it together.
That is true. He can't.
I'm biting my tongue here. Want to say some
I know.
things that
Like when Ned's sitting in the computer lab trying to help him, and the teacher walks in. What are you doing in here? Looking at porn.
yeah, that was a good touch.
I felt the plot was a little predictable, but as a entry movie for the character, that was expected. Again, I said it already. Tom Holland is, in my opinion, one of the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker mixes. I think he plays both really, really well as a fresh Peter Parker. I guess Andrew Garfield would be more of the early teens Peter Parker. I would see Tobey Maguire as like the well into his experience.
The season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It just kind of
No, I
plays
agree.
out that way. Michael Keaton's portrayal of the Vulture, though, was over the top wonderful. As you would say, he did not phone it in. He was there. I thought he was absolutely probably one of the best acting.
Keaton doesn't phone it in.
No,
I don't care what
my
he's
gosh, no. He was one of the best parts of the whole movie. Zendaya as MJ, which not Mary Jane, we find out is Michelle. Still curious on how that works. Did they just change the name for fun, or is it actually a different character?
They're just trying to throw you off the scent.
I think I liked her, but I didn't care for how in this movie she was like, instead of being the popular high school girl, she was more the edgy loner of, oh, I don't need anybody type. I don't know. It didn't play right with me at first, but going back now, they're doing something different, and I liked it.
You gotta freshen it up.
Right. Like I said, the whole cast I thought was very well done. I liked that we didn't have to see Uncle Ben die for the 1300th time. Marisa Tomei,
Marissa Tomei.
A younger version of Aunt May, more vibrant, more active.
She was a spicy aunt.
Yeah.
She was.
I read though that when she played that part, she was actually in her, I think, late 40s already.
Yeah,
she's
aged well.
But in all, it was really refreshing not seeing another. No offense to the older ones, not seeing another older Aunt May.
Well, it's like when I lived with my grandmother, I had my Aunt Jan, but she was the sister of my grandmother. So she's like, you're great, but you don't ever say, oh, my great aunt.
But you see, it's like, oh, younger Peter, younger Aunt. I loved it. That is one of my favorite movies. Well, obviously, it's top 3.
Top 3, yeah. My top 3 has 3 to go, in case you're doing the math. But at number 3 is Spider-Man 2, the sequel by Sam Raimi. Or, as we've talked about before, has Dr. Octopus and things like that. I won't go into a lot of detail here because I feel like we're really close on the feeling of this. But quickly, my likes of this movie were the action and fight scenes, especially the train scene. I mean, it's one of the most iconic scenes to this day in any comic book movie. I feel like this movie turns up the dial in action for one part in just the right amount while lowering the campness level in another part. Like, it amped up one's action but lowered the campiness. There's no more Macho Man type stuff in here. The CGI with the tentacles, everything that they did with Dr. Octopus, I thought was very well done. They really kind of pushed the envelope a little bit with the CGI for the time. Definitely stands up. I feel like in the newer movie, they kind of did like the same stuff again. It didn't feel like they had to reinvent the wheel. It was still the same stuff, which was awesome. I did like Harry's descent into madness and his father issues. I thought that was done well. I just wish it would have been a different actor. I mean, I think he did great, but every time you watch these movies, sometimes you see some of these actors and you go, "Ooh,
like I said,
could it have been somebody else?" But he did it well.
Great as Harry, not as great as the Goblin.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the descent was good. Now the flight, the takeoff was
snowboard.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little bit silly. So I kind of guess that bleeds into the dislikes. I didn't like most of the scenes with Peter and MJ. They kind of irritated me, because they just don't have chemistry to me. The Harry stuff kind of stumbled at the end. The psychological loss of his powers, I kind of even forgot it happened, so it wasn't even that much of an impact for me. I feel like the cartoon where he like sprouts all the arms was more memorable to me than this movie. And I know it seemed like I'm crapping on it, but it's at number 3. These are like kind of small things because the stuff with Dr. Octopus is so big, and Alfred Molina owns every scene he's in so much, it kind of lessens all of the irritation I have for some of the other parts. I kind of just forget that they even happen because I remember so much of the great sequences. They just overshadow the bad parts a lot. Overall, I think it's a good sequel to the first movie that raises the stakes and ante in all respects. It shows what you can do to not only make a good sequel, but a good comic book movie sequel, which a lot of comic book movie sequels have issues with. It's still fun to watch, and the action stands up today. Alfred Molina brings a lot to the film, and he carries it on his tentacles. We'll go with that. And that was my number 3.
We're heading into the top 2. So number 2 on my list, we're looking at Spider-Man 2002, the first of the Sam Raimi series. Let me explain.
Hey, listen, before you even go, I had it kind of here, but I moved it down. So
I understand it's a cheesy movie. I understand there's plenty wrong with it. We already touched on the chemistry isn't there between Peter and MJ. James Franco isn't the greatest choice for the Harry Osborn role, and he's a pretty crappy friend in the movie, if I might say so. Cliff Robertson, great as Ben Parker. I remember his death on the street. Really kind of.
It's the best Ben death.
It is. It is. I mean,
I felt something when I watched that.
Yes,
I did.
thank you.
It had some impact to it.
I mean, he goes the wrestling. He doesn't get paid. Oh, I don't see how that's
Not my problem.
And then his uncle gets killed. And then he hunts down the wrong person. But it's just the whole way that thing played out was amazing. Rosemary Harris is Aunt May. We already said it. I mean, she's outstanding as Aunt May. She's that sweet old woman. She played a great, terrified Aunt May when the wall blows off of her house.
Oh, the hair blowing. The silver hair blowing in the wind. Yeah.
So all of that said, though, this was possibly my first real exposure to a superhero movie that wasn't Batman or Superman at the time. I'm trying to think. I don't think the X-Men were out yet.
X-Men might have been. It's either right before or right after it. Well, you keep talking. I'll Google it.
Okay.
Google it.
But I remember, I watched the Batmans growing up. I saw the old Supermans growing up. The cartoons. Okay, great. This is one of the first superhero movies.
X-Men 2000.
So it did come out first.
Yes, X-Men was first.
But I remember I didn't see it first. I can tell you that. This was one of the movies that really sparked my interest into, there's other people other than Batman and Superman. I think this is what really kind of snowballed me more into the Marvel universe. Because growing up, that's what I collected. Batman. I collected Green Lantern.
You were a DC guy growing up.
Absolutely. Like The Flash.
Interesting how we're dissimilar. I was a Marvel guy. I got the Marvel Handbook first. Dove me into Marvel.
Yeah.
You were a DC guy.
I grew up with Batman, Superman, The Flash. They were my go-tos. I didn't really understand at the time, I guess, that there were totally different, companies. And it's not just Marvel and DC. There's Black Horse. There's
Image, Top Cow.
I mean, there's so many out there. There's some incredible gems out there that, most people don't even... Maybe we'll do that sometime.
Best comics of companies that are no longer around.
We'll call it the indie movies of comics. We'll find the...
Oh, indie movies.
The deep cut comics that most people have never even heard of.
Okay, I thought we were going to talk about Tom McFarlane's Spawn movie, but okay.
That doesn't exist. Actually, you know what? That does exist. Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds. That doesn't exist.
Now we have to do some of these because I feel like we have some different opinions, but that's okay. We're talking about Spider-Man today, so...
Side note, I did like Ryan Reynolds' movie. I just hated the CGI, but at the time, I mean, it's what we had. But anyways, yeah, so this is one of my first major exposures to the superhero realm that was outside of DC. So it holds a really special place in my heart, I think, because it was not a dude flying around, and it wasn't so dark that I could barely see the screen, which all the old Tim Burton Batmans absolutely were. Well, Tim Burton and, all of those. You know what I mean? Up through, Val Kilmer and George Clooney. The bat nipples and all.
Schumacher.
Yeah.
Schumacher.
And this movie, it really played heavily on the human emotion aspect of storytelling. Okay, here's Peter. Here's his choices. And it wasn't just, I made choices, I'm going to go and be a superhero. It's, he had to live with his choices. Again, it really drives it home when you see Uncle Ben die. Oh, okay, he got shot, he'll be fine. Nope, he's dead. You watch as Aunt May struggles with this. You watch as Peter goes through grief and he hunts down who he thinks is the killer. It really plays on the deep-rooted psychological aspect that everybody has of losing somebody. And I think it's one of the reasons it stuck with me as such a fantastic movie is it makes you feel.
Makes you care. That's why
Yeah.
I said earlier the foundations of X-Men and Spider-Man bring emotions to the table. I mean, I'm not saying there's no emotions in any other
You mean
comic
like
book movie.
the X-Men trilogy, the original?
I'm just talking about the very first
In
X-Men
general,
that
okay.
came out, and then this Spider-Man movie comes out. You know, the very ending of the X-Men movie with Wolverine and Rogue, like you feel that, and the music behind it. And in this movie here, you feel it. It's not just some over-the-top craziness. Like, it has stakes.
Or like as much as it's hated when Wolverine has to take down Jean Grey, even though he's madly in love with her.
Yeah, and he has to stab her.
Like he has to. Like
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this for me though, like this was one of the first times I really saw that. Like you get Batman's parents being killed in a real brief sequence in the beginning of the movies, but this was the first time like you watch last words being said. Like,
do you ever see like Bruce Wayne like look at a picture of his parents and tear up or even show emotion? No, he's a concrete wall.
Once.
Right? Which one was it?
The Flashpoint graphic novel.
Okay.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, but I mean, like on screen, no. But like Peter, he's hurt from it. He's crushed by it. This show that you can make an emotional comic book movie that's gonna still be fun. You can combine those elements together.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for those two movies, we would not be watching the movies we watch today.
Yeah, I agree. But then this movie also gave us so many iconic moments. I mean, despite its cheesiness, like the upside down kiss with Mary Jane. I have seen so many like fan paintings of it, and like
there's a lot of comedy parodies.
Yes, there was one where they were doing it, and they actually played it off the true story that I guess water was running up into his nose and he couldn't breathe. But there was a parody of it where like he goes to kiss her and then just drops down to the ground dead because he drowned. I hate picking it apart though because it's such a great movie in my eyes. But like the dialogue of it, I understand they were trying to keep it simple, almost comic book-esque. A lot of it felt like it was overly simplified. Like there was no depth to the conversations at all.
I don't know how much Sam Raimi had to do with the actual writing, but I've seen some Sam Raimi movies, and I think he's a great director. But I don't know how well he is with directing dialogue. I've seen a few movies where I think like it's simple dialogue.
Gotcha. So I mean, that's it for me with Spider-Man. I mean, all in all, I will still sit down and watch it. Like if I catch it on TV, it's still again my number 2, one of my favorite movies.
Awesome. It's a good pick.
Yeah, I know.
I know you know that I know that you know. Number 2 for me is Spider-Man: Homecoming. Again, we don't need to go really in deep in the last 2 picks here. I mean, we've already, I think we got about the same things here, just in some different orders. But I'll quickly go through my likes and whatnot. And what I liked about this one, I liked skipping the origin story. I thought that was refreshing. We didn't need to see it again. Keeping Peter in high school for a couple minutes, I thought was nice. It shows his connection to New York, with him going to the bodegas and all throughout the neighborhood. I thought that was really good. He has a relationship with the people who live there. It felt organic. It felt lived in. It didn't feel like a studio set piece to me, just like a backlot somewhere. I did like having Peter do stupid teenage things that makes more sense when you're a teenager to do than like when you're an adult and you won't make those dumb decisions. You just, because your brain's not developed right, and you're impulsive and you make stupid things, and that's why he's relying on Tony, and he needs people around him to tell him what to do, and I thought that was done well. And so he obviously has some parental issues, some father issues, which is I think why I really liked the Vulture stuff with him, especially in the car. But there's also kind of a sense there that maybe if this guy wasn't a bad dude, he could have sort of been a father figure to Peter, which is kind of what they did in the other Spider-Man movies with Green Goblin. I think Vulture's reasoning is more organic. He wants money, and he wants what he's due, and he's a hardworking man. I don't know a lot about the character in the comics, except for he's a bald, crazy-looking dude. But I thought Michael Keaton brought everything he needed to this. I do like the very end scene between him and Peter where they're fighting, and Peter just won't quit. Like, he's just like, just stop, kid. Just not, like, and Peter's just like, no, man. Like, he doesn't have the techno suit or nothing. Like, he's just not going to stop. Like, he's showing a no-quit attitude, and I think Tobey Maguire didn't really have that rough and tumbleness to him that I think Tom Holland brought to this.
And I also really loved how when he is fighting Adrian, the Vulture, There's a scene where he literally yells out, like, I'm just trying to save you. Like, he's not trying to fight him because, oh, it's the right thing to do. He realizes, like, dude, your suit's broken. Listen to me.
Yeah.
He won't give up, but he also just has this, he still holds that innocence to him.
Right. I mean, I read somewhere that Garfield, when he took the role of Spider-Man, he decided he was gonna, like, he got, I don't know if he bought spiders or something. He did a lot of like research on spiders and something, so that like in those movies, he wanted to study the movements of spiders, so it looked organic. And I think that was great. But the athleticism of Tom Holland that he actually brings to Spider-Man. Have you ever seen some like the stuff that he sent in when he was campaigning for the role? Like, the guy really can jump around and move. Like,
Yeah.
Uncharted may not be a great movie, but he brings a lot of athleticism to that role that he does here as well.
I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I never played the games, but it was all right. It was a basic adventure story. What I didn't like about this movie was Tony's a little bit unlikable. He was kind of like really mean to Peter. I don't know, maybe he was on the bottle during this movie. I don't know. Maybe that's why we didn't see Tony a lot. A little bit too much Happy Hogan for me. I mean, he's okay. Jon Favreau's a good actor and all, good director, but I didn't need him as much in this movie. And some of Vulture's minions, the guys that were with him, and the Scorpion, I was really irritated at what they did with Scorpion. They need to recast that or do something different. I don't like that at all.
You mean the little, like...
Got the Scorpion tattoo on his neck.
Yeah, he gets caught at the van deal or whatever.
Yeah, he's on the ferry.
Yeah.
And
then he's in prison at the end.
It was good seeing Childish Gambino up in here, kind of a cameo. Is he Prowler? Is he not Prowler? I thought that was cool. Marissa Tomei being the actual appropriate age of an ant, like the real appropriate age of an ant, I thought was really nice. Michael Keaton never phones it in. He definitely cranked it up in this movie. I think he's just chewing up the scenery and everything he's in. Overall, if not for the jam-packed sequel to this, it'd be my number one, but it's not. So I think it hits every single note of action comedy in raw motion that it needs to. I think it really does. And it's definitely rewatchable. I think it's one of the best rewatchable ones. And so that's my number two. I got one to go.
So I think we're in agreement then. Number one, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, I do agree that that's number one. I don't have any secret Spider-Man movies that I don't know about. I'll give you the synopsis.
You don't have the Japanese one where he runs around with a machine gun shooting people?
No, I do not. I don't. So Spider-Man No Way From Home picks up immediately after the events of Spider-Man Far Away From Home. Peter deals with the identity being released to the world and seeks help from Doctor Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. After a spell goes awry. It's a strange British word they use all the time in some of these things.
Awry.
Awry? It's not awry? I've been saying it wrong for 30 some years.
It's awry.
So that explains it.
If you say something that goes awry, it means it went off track.
I never say that though, ever. All right, well, the spell goes awry, and Peter is joined by former Spider-Man actors Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield to face off against other enemies like the Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, Lizard, Electro, and maybe others. I'd have to scroll down there. So there's your synopsis, and why is it number one for you, Josh?
So let me just, I'll be blunt. Yes, this movie, to anybody who's going to complain about it, it was absolutely fan service, but it was also a great movie. I'm happy it was a fan service. And here, let me tell you what. Let's just start with the villains. I mean, if you look at it, obviously, they brought in a villain from each of the movies. You had Willem Dafoe returning as Green Goblin. You had...
Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus, Sandman by Hayden Church, Lizard by Rhys Ifans, and Electro was Jamie Foxx.
Right. And I feel like they gave every one of them a chance to completely redeem their character. Now, granted, Doc Ock and Green Goblin didn't need redeemed. They were just...
Well, they redeemed it by tossing that damn helmet off.
Wow.
They left that in the alleyway. He's like, yeah, that's too heavy.
Yeah, true.
Ditch that.
But, Sandman, they brought him in, and instead of trying to fight him or, get him wet, they tried to help him. I loved how, spoiler, the climax of the movie, instead of just trying to, beat the bad guy, they're trying to help the bad guys.
Well, we said it in the last movie, or you did. This Spider-Man wants to help people. He doesn't want to just win. He doesn't want to just lock somebody up. He wants to help them. That's the scientist that I think this movie as well brings in that the original movies didn't do.
They want to change Sandman back into just being a dude, not a sand creature. They want to give Doc Ock, a new chip to control the arms that are pretty much fused to his body at this point.
Right.
I mean, they're trying to do a serum to help Green Goblin lose this Dexter-esque dark passenger that's telling him what to do. I mean, and I loved how in the movie, Willem Dafoe, you could see that he's still a terrified little human being being controlled by this dark Green Goblin entity.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's still obviously two personalities at play here. The Lizard, I felt that he had very little screen time.
A little shortchanged there.
Yeah.
I know I should go after you, but I'm going to kind of add in with you here. But
No, that's fine.
Yeah, a little shortchanged. I think the Lizard was the one that got dropped.
Yes, absolutely. And then filling the last of the villain roster in, I thought Jamie Foxx as this version of Electro was great. I liked it. I liked the design. I
They
liked
let
his
Jamie Foxx be
acting.
Jamie Foxx.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, that alone in this movie, I thought having that cast, okay, normally, we have too many cooks in the kitchen again. It's going to get screwed up. It was very well balanced with the exception of Lizard.
Right. I mean, he does, correct me, it has been a couple minutes since I've seen it, but he is jumping around on the statue.
Yeah.
Like he is there chomping away with his lizard brain, not thinking right. You know.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
about all I really remember. I remember him being in a cell, and I remember him jumping around on.
And he was in the back of the van
rafters.
when they went up to the apartment to try and work on these cures. Well, originally, when just Tom Holland was trying to work on the cures, they didn't take him up because he might cause a stir. And then I think it was like reporters or police or somebody showed up. I can't remember exactly, and he just like snapped and burst out of the van, and
like an animal.
all hell broke loose.
Okay, it's slowly coming back.
The visual effects throughout the movie, from
top notch.
Doctor Strange to everything about it was just so clean cut. Like normally I could pick out something effects wise I didn't like. You could tell they put their top people in this.
Right.
And they paid them what they were deserving.
I hope they did.
I hope. Yeah, I do.
There's some guy listening going, wait a minute. I'm still waiting on that check, homie. Pay the guy. Like, come on, Marvel. Pay the guy.
The plot I felt was very unique. I mean, yes, it's been done, but at the same time, it hasn't.
Well, there was a couple different elements being thrown in here. The Doctor Strange thing, if they would have done it without Doctor Strange, I felt like it probably would have been a little bit more plain.
Yeah.
But he brought a little bit. He's put a little spell work into this to give it some jazz. You know what I mean? I hate jazz, but give it some guitar riffs. How about that?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
And then we can't avoid it. The biggest elephant in the room is the return of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
Right. I mean, not very good keeping this a secret. You know, these guys lying on talk shows. Andrew's like, I'm not in this, man. It's not me. I'm not that. You're there, bud. We know you're there.
Well, I don't think Tobey Maguire really did many interviews. I don't remember seeing him.
He's not really in the public light a lot that I ever know. I never see him on TMZ. So
there you go. My only issue with that was when they find Tom Holland on the roof and they're trying to talk to him, and he looks up and he sees a silhouette of two more Spider-Men. Dude, a week ago you were dealing with Mysterio, and you're just gonna, okay, let me join forces with these guys.
He does just kind of buy it. He's a young kid. I'm telling you, he makes dumb decisions.
I'm telling you,
he's still young.
I feel like he'd have been like, okay, so you roll a second, like, no, there's something not right here. That's two more of me that don't look like me.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with the fact that he's just like, okay, let's team up.
I think that's just the young immaturity that they brought to this role for him, and yeah.
I did like Ned finding his hidden powers.
Yeah, at least they gave this kid something to do other than type on some keys and just solve
and build the Death
techno
Star
problems.
Out of Legos.
Like, why is it that Peter Parker's supposed to be a super smart dude, but he needs a techno wizard with him, and he needs a techno suit. He needs all these things.
Because he's still a high schooler. He's not super smart yet. He's just super smart. He's not a genius yet.
No, just pre-genius. Okay.
I do have to say, I love the banter that went back and forth between the three Peters, like especially in the lab and up on the statue and stuff when they're just
You are amazing.
yes. Yeah, or like when Spider-Man 2 when Tobey Maguire falls and oh my back. And then he's like, "Hey, can you crack my back?" And it's just like, "Oh man, I wonder how many people caught that."
Yeah, I will say I did. Tobey Maguire got redeemed in this movie for me.
Oh yeah.
I liked him in the original. The other two, I was like, eh. But I felt like this was a seasoned veteran. He wasn't
Yeah, oh absolutely.
brooding too much. He wasn't dancing. He was
Well,
just.
and he didn't
he
go
felt-
running through the portal. Hey, rip my mask off like Andrew Garfield. He's just cautiously.
Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man has energy to him. Like he's always
Well,
just
he does. He
bouncing
does.
off the walls again.
But I just love how like Tobey Maguire just kind of like slowly came through the portal, like, hey.
So
And then they talk about Spider-Man. He's like, well, I mean that just telling people kind of defeats the purpose of a secret identity.
right.
Like, yeah, you're right. Like you can tell
Well,
he's been doing this a while.
Yeah, well, he sees what happens when people find out. You know, you get
Well, yeah.
your grandma aunt dragged up on a clock tower.
Yeah.
like,
There
wherever
was
it is.
I do remember hearing a brief part where he says about him and MJ. Yeah, we worked it out. So
Yeah.
maybe they did get together.
Yeah, happy for them.
Yeah.
Good to go, guy. Now,
So did you see this one in theaters?
no,
Oh man.
no,
You waited till home video.
no. Wait a minute. Wait. Let me, Now I did see this one. I did see this one. I did not see the previous one in theaters. I think I might have saw Homecoming in theaters.
Okay.
I don't go to the theater very often anymore. It's super expensive, and where we live, you know where you got to drive to go to a good theater.
Yeah, you gotta drive a good 35, 40 minutes to get to a theater
Yeah.
that you don't stick to the ground.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love our little podunk home theater here in our town. It's just well past the point of dated, and nobody's really doing much to fix that.
No.
Uh,
No, and
but-
the guy just owned it recently, kind of.
Yeah. But I remember going to see No Way Home in theaters. I remember like when they showed Andrew Garfield, people cheered. When they showed Tobey Maguire, people cheered. Like,
Yeah, I did see it live. I remember now.
like little
Yeah,
things like
sure.
that. Like it's like, oh man, I'm not the only one that is so excited to be geeking out right now.
Well, I mean, there was rumors that they were there and they couldn't, hide the secret. But still watching, you're like halfway through the movie and you're like, well, maybe they aren't showing up.
Yep.
Maybe they were telling the truth. They're not
Well,
here.
it was like,
Or maybe it's going to be an end credit scene and we're all going to be angry.
well, it was right after, everything goes awry, and
It's Ari. He's lying to you folks.
and all the
I speak
villains
American.
escape, and Aunt May, spoiler, dies. It was like right after that, I believe, is when they did the scene where they introduced, Toby and Andrew, and you're sitting there like we passed the threshold of no return. Like, where are they? All this shit just hit the fan hard.
Right.
They should have been here by now. And then when, honestly, I was in the same boat, I'm starting to think like, well, maybe they're not
We
in
got
this.
duped.
And then there they are.
Well, and them showing up made sense, and it actually when they showed up made sense, and why they actually brought them in to show this Peter, hey, we've been down this road before, we know what this is like, we could, we could have done these things too, we chose not to, like we can't let this Spider-Man fall, kind of from grace as well in a way.
Towards the end, when he's getting ready to just drive the glider right through Willem Dafoe, right there's Tobey Maguire stopping him, just like, no, man,
Come on.
don't do it.
Yeah. That was one of the big reasons he kind of redeemed himself. Like the acting, I think like Tobey Maguire's like, this is probably my last shot at Spider-Man, and I've probably heard the criticisms, and I'm gonna amp it up here. I'm gonna.
Oh, and I think him and Andrew Garfield both redeemed themselves 100%.
Yeah.
Like,
And Garfield whet everybody's appetite for another one. They're like, let's get with all this stuff going on with the multiverse right
Yeah.
now. Let's bring him back again, especially
Absolutely.
with the Spider-Verse movies going on. The Deadpool type stuff, the TVA and Loki. They're like, there's got to be a
It
way
can
to
be
bring this.
done.
Yes,
Yeah.
it can definitely. If you can bring in Lego Spider-Man, who's one of the best Asians, by the way, then you can bring back Garfield another time for sure.
if you have no idea what we're talking about, in the new Across the Spider-Verse animated movie, yeah, Lego Spider-Man makes an appearance, and
Yes.
it's actually pretty great.
Yeah, and he's told he's one of the best. You're one of our best.
Yeah.
Beep boop.
So let me ask you, what do you feel is probably your favorite, or even just the most memorable part of this movie? Being your favorite of the franchises, franchisees.
Franchisee. Well, I would say my favorite part of this particular film would be the end sequence.
Like
Um,
the big battle.
yeah, the big battle. Not so much everybody jumping around, but the emotion that was in it. I
Mm.
feel all three Spider-Men were just doing certain things storyline wise to bring them full circle from their other stuff. And I could feel it as I was watching it going to culminate. And I was really hoping they weren't going to drop the ball, and they didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, man, they're really pointing us in a certain direction here. I feel like they should all get their period point at the end of this to say, bam, we did it.
And they did.
They did.
Oh, they did. And I think one of the, it's not my favorite part of the movie, but one of the biggest, as you said, like, well, even just like redemption style, it was when MJ falls and Andrew Garfield gets his second chance
And
at saving
has that little
somebody.
smile
And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, my heart like stopped
well, when
because
this is
I'm
happening,
just
you
like,
don't know where he's at. Like, where is like? You're like, oh crap, here's another death.
I'm just like, oh man, tell me it's gonna happen again. It can't happen again. Is it gonna happen again?
Anybody could die from that height.
And then like he gets her to the ground. He's like, "Are you okay?" And she's just like, "Yeah." But as the audience, we're like, "Dude, my heart just shattered." Like, you
Yeah.
know what he's feeling right now.
There's like fan service, but then there's let's fix some stuff because the
Yes.
fan wants us to.
Well, and it wasn't even fix it. It was, let's help him get closure on something that happened.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying the movie screwed it up when she did die. I'm saying
Right.
let's fix his emotional wound.
Like
Let's
no,
help heal it.
I lost mine. I got to save his type
Yeah.
of thing. Like, my favorite scene in that whole movie, it's in the apartment before everything goes crazy. It's when the audio starts to, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like cloud, where like you hear people talking, it slowly starts, the volume goes down to the point where it's almost silent because Tom Holland's spider sense is kicking in and he realizes the Green Goblin is back, but he doesn't know what it is. He just knows something is horribly wrong. And then he goes into the room and, there he is.
Well, he's something of a scientist himself.
Yes. I mean, it just, dude, it was
Yeah,
like,
the death of Aunt May in here, heart punch. This Peter Parker's been through it. Like his parents.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened to them in this movie? Car accident. I don't know if they ever
his
explained it.
parents are the ones that shut down the other parents in the airplane.
So his parents, we don't know what happened to him. His uncle Ben is supposedly died. We don't really, they never really cover that.
He went to
either.
get the milky and never came back.
Back of smokes. But then, so parents, Uncle Ben, now she's dead. Tony Stark dies before that. Then he's got to give up everybody. I was going to, my overall here was that I feel like this is a great conclusion to the Spider-Man trilogy that brought it all together, all the franchisees together, and then blew it up only to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here, but not overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, and that, like you said, the reset button, like, yeah, make everybody forget me, period. That includes all the Avengers. That includes Edith, which I was reading online is a theory of why he never got another smart suit. He doesn't have clearance. He's not in Tony's system for it anymore.
That would make sense.
That's why he didn't get to graduate, and he has a GED book at the end.
What movie was it recently just popped out where somebody hinted at Spider-Man and somebody knew, or hinted that they knew? What movies have come out past this?
I know what you mean.
In the Spider-Verse movie, obviously, they go,
they
Doctor
say,
Strange and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, no, they say something about, like, working with Spider-Man, but they never actually say they know who he is. They know of him.
Okay.
But
Is it the Doctor Strange movie?
Well, at the end of, maybe. I don't think so, though. But at the end of this Spider-Man, when he's happy at the grave, like, oh, how did you know? Or he says, through Spider-Man. Well, Peter says it, but.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a great movie. There's a reason it's number one. There's a reason.
Absolutely. Honorable mention, we get freaking Matt Murdock back as a lawyer.
Oh, yes.
It was like 5 minutes, but it was great.
Right.
catching the brick as it flies through the window before Peter.
It's right them laying the bricks for the future of the MCU. I mean,
Yep.
Feige and them know what they're doing.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they've gotten a little sloppy, but they still know what they're doing. They'll fix it, I hope.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think we have a pretty solid list, and I'm very happy with with our results here.
Yeah, I think we had a good talk here. Good talk. I hope you guys agree. I hope you guys disagree. I hope you guys tell us why in the comments sections of our website. And
Absolutely.
where is our website, Josh? If these people wanted to know more about us or check out other episodes, where would they go about?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It used to be a very convoluted URL that was hosted through this, which was through this, which is through that. But recently, we have made the acquisition of our very own domain. So all you have to do is type in www.treeofgeek.com.
Probably just treeofgeek.com these days. You got to put in the W's.
Or treeofgeek.com. Yeah, you could just do that. Or I discovered if you just Google Tree of Geek podcast, we're at the top.
We're at the top. We're at the top of the tree, the tippy top.
Well,
Excellent.
we were when I searched it.
Okay.
So yeah, we do. We strongly encourage you. Please, hit up treeofgeek.com. We have a contact us form. Send us your list, your order. Give us your reasons why. We'd love to hear about it. We'll do our best to reply to you as quick as we can. We're going to shoot for everybody until we get too big that we can't, and then we'll hire Bruce Almighty to do it for us with his little automated, everybody system. So visit us at treeofgeek.com, hit the contact us form, and you can send us your list of your top 10 Spider-Man movies, including Venom 1 and 2. We'd love to hear about it. We will absolutely read it. We'll try and get back to you as soon as we can. We will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. But until then, remember, like, subscribe, follow, whatever you have to do on your podcast streaming platform. We are on all major podcast platforms now: Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and of course, treeofgeek.com. You can go and listen to the latest episode or follow that to find the streaming service of your choice.
If you Google it, it's Tree of Geek all together. Then we're the number one that pops up.
Well, there you go. Keep in mind, as always, we love doing this. We love helping.
I mean, if you need an outlet, if you don't have a whole lot of people to talk to, you don't got that best friend to chew the fat on about Superman versus Wolverine versus Batman versus Hulk versus Star Trek, and you're like, well, man, maybe I just want to listen. We'll be that outlet for you.
Absolutely.
We'll be here for you to listen. If you need a friend, we'll be your friend.
If you like what we're doing and you want more content from us, consider becoming a paid subscriber with us through our website, where you can make a small monthly donation ranging from $3 to $10. Every little bit's gonna help. It'll help us cover our hosting fees for the website, for the podcast. Don't worry, none of it's gonna go to waste.
It'll help us grow. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We greatly appreciate you lending your ears. Hopefully we'll see you again in the next episode. And word of mouth works. Let your friends know what we're doing, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.